Newsroom. Yes, it's time for the France 24 debate. We're looking at a test of wills in the Arab world's most populous state. Defying its disbanding, Egypt's parliament convened this Tuesday. The session lasting all of 5 minutes, a symbolic show of defiance against the military's backed Upper Constitutional Council. The session called by Egypt's new president. Critics ask, which is the real Mohamed Morsi, the one who took his oath before his Muslim Brotherhood supporters in Cairo's Tahrir Square, or the one who took the very same oath before the Mubarak-appointed institutions the next day? Those institutions at the heart of the test of wills that's unfolding. There's even talk of a race to draft dueling constitutions. For Mohamed Morsi, who we can show you seen here at a Monday military commencement exercise in Cairo, convening parliament was his opening gambit, it seems, in a job whose prerogatives, let's not forget, have yet to be spelled out. Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the showdown in Egypt, and with us from his home constituency of Luxor, Abdul Mawgood Dardari of the Muslim Brotherhood's Freedom and Justice Party. Thank you for being with us. We want to thank as well...
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. We want to thank as well Dalia Hassan of the January 25th movement, the liberal movement that were among the first in Tahrir Square way back in January of 2011. It seems like a long time ago now.
It is.
Also with us, Adel Gundi, president of Coptic Solidarity. Thank you for joining us. And thanks again to Tanguy Sanin of the Reuters News Agency and author in French so far of Tahrir's Egypt, which came out last year. The France 24 debate, where you can always weigh in on the conversation on Facebook, and you can always join the conversation as well on Twitter. You can find us at FrancoisF24. Now, speaking of Twitter, here's how Omar Ashur of the Brookings Institute called it earlier in the day. Egypt's parliament security ordered to allow MPs to enter following Egypt president's decision to reinstate parliament. Cautious, phew. Well, when Parliament next votes a binding piece of legislation is, well, another matter.
Following a presidential decree, lawmakers showed up in Parliament in an open challenge to Egypt's military for a symbolic 5-minute-long session.
The president's decision restores to their rightful owners their rights and balances powers between authorities.
Last month, Egypt's High Court ruled that parliamentary elections were unconstitutional. The military then ordered the Islamist-led parliament's dissolution, which effectively put legislative powers back into the general's hands. For the Islamist-led parliament, the move is about finding a way to keep the assembly in place until a new constitution is written.
The chamber will not object to the court's rulings, nor will it discuss them. We emphasize that today's discussions are about finding a mechanism to implement those rulings out of respect for the principles of the supremacy of the law and the separation of powers.
Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi and his majority said they would turn to an appeals court for a second opinion, but the military vowed to uphold the ruling. The move pushes Egypt deeper into a power struggle between the Muslim Brotherhood and the powerful military as they fight for the right to draft the country's new constitution.
All right, so we heard in that report, Abdul Mawgood Dardari, the speakers say, we're not going to raise any objection to what the Constitutional Court said, nor are we going to discuss it. But point of fact, by convening, they've acted in word, by deeds, not in words.
I couldn't hear the rest of the question clearly because I have a connection difficulty. But let me first thank you and your respected guests for having this conversation. It is a very important conversation. We all have, most likely, we're going to agree on things and we're going to disagree on other things. I have just a couple of points to make. Number one is I don't see this as a defiance to the military. I see it as fixing the problem created by the military. The military made, especially the military council, made a mistake by taking the legislative power into its own hands. It was never elected by the people of Egypt, and it should not really have done this, but it did it when there was no president. Now the president is elected, and the new president has to give the power back to the people. And I, as a lawmaker, I was there. With the rest, everyone was happy. Walking the streets of Luxor or Cairo, people are really happy that the will of the people is being materialized and respected by the new president, declaring that supremacy of law as well as the separation of power are very important principles in the coming years of Egypt.
Hang on, we're a bit confused because you say it's not a defiance, but the highest court in the land dissolved parliament.
Not in Egypt. It has the right to state clearly if the law was constitutional or not. But executing the dissolution is not part of the constitutional law in Egypt. And this is where the difficulty is. The military council took it upon its own as if it was given this by somewhere, some power from somewhere, and took the legislative power. It should not have done that. Now the newly elected president came and brought back the power to the people of Egypt. As a representative of the people in Luxor, I feel very much honored, but that this is the way Egypt is going to move forward through the respect of law, especially respect of the will of the Egyptian people.
Tanguy Salan, clarify this for us. Was this or was this not a defiance of the court?
Well, it depends on what is going on behind in the discussions between the Muslim Brotherhood and the army. That's what we don't know exactly. There have been ongoing discussions for months for who will hold the power, actually. We know that the army doesn't want all the power to fall into the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood for several reasons. But we don't know how far they are ready to go into the confrontation with the Muslim Brotherhood. There are discussions now about the new government, about the new constitution. This overruling of the High Court decision is just a small part of this big game. So it's hard to tell exactly if it is a defiance, all the more as Mohamed Morsi himself took a few precautions by saying, okay, the parliament will convene again. Then we don't know exactly when it will convene, by the way, for next session. And we would have new elections 60 days after there is a new constitution, which means normally after a few months. So it's not like if he was saying, okay, this parliament is here and will not go. So this is all negotiations, and this is only the small part of the iceberg that we can see. All the rest is behind the table.
Very briefly, Abdul Mawgood Dardari, when do you expect to next convene in Parliament?
We're meeting this coming Sunday. And I would like, I wonder how we call it a confrontation. I don't see the confrontation. I mean, the president, in fact, is respecting the Constitutional Court. It's just providing a more democratic mechanism. The military council wanted to make a military mechanism by taking the power. You don't take the power of the people into your own hands. That is not democracy. The president, the freely elected president of Egypt, produced and introduced another alternative, another mechanism by giving the power back to the people. And I really don't like to call President Morsi as a Muslim Brotherhood president. He's not. He even resigned from the Muslim Brotherhood. He is the Egyptian president. He's the president of Egypt. And we're really, out of respect, we should call him the president of Egypt.
All right. Dalia Hassan, in Egypt right now, what you have is a situation as described by both our panelists so far, where there is a bit of a chess game going on. Is it not better this way? After all, rather than have a violent confrontation where all institutions break down, is this the best way to go about things?
I think that, as Tanguy Salan said, we don't see all parts of this game between the military council and Muslim Brotherhood. But right now in the streets, the problem is that real, true revolutionaries are treated like unpatriotic people, because the current discussion now is like, we don't have the right to criticize our president. no president is not criticizable. I mean, he is here to be. He is submit to criticizing, and we can point the lack of transparency and the mistakes right away. And this is a problem right now in the streets and among the young and the revolutionary figures in Egypt.
What do you mean? Do you mean that their voice is not being heard, or do you mean that their voice is being suppressed somehow?
They are suppressed, and they are treated.
How?
They are treated as like how to say the
Unpatriotic, un-Egyptian.
Yes, by representative from the Muslim Brotherhood.
And can you give me a concrete example of that?
Like anyone who is criticizing now this decision for Morsi, the president, to bring back the parliament. Which is not a constitutional issue. I mean, this is for me and from my point of view, this is a part of the game and of the deal with the SCAF. It's like a playing card. They give it to Morsi to show him as a powerful president, which he's not, because he could have had his first demands to be real popular. It could have been liberation of the detainees, for example, decisions that could touch the society. And not a decision like this to just bring back a parliament who was very, very criticized just before the elections.
But all right, so let me turn to you here, Adel Gwindi. Parliament, it was elected, and whether there were irregularities, perhaps, but the most open election, certainly, in decades, perhaps ever in Egypt's history. It really is binary, isn't it, at one point? Is it the Constitutional Court that's right, or is it the president that's right in this sense?
No, I mean, everybody's trying to put it in a frame of democracy, legitimacy, and so on. It's a power game. We have to keep in mind three...
But weren't these lawmakers elected?
Yeah, elected by the wrong law. I mean, everybody who watched the development of the law about almost a year ago knew that there was some bombs set there by the Brotherhood. When the split in percentage between the lists, candidate list, and the individual candidates was being discussed, it was the Brotherhood who insisted to have the party's representative running on either one of them. And at the time, I remember very, very well, many experts said this is going to deteriorate the law. It's going to be unconstitutional. And when the court decided it was unconstitutional, was expected by everybody, almost everybody, all the experts, and that was no surprise at all. So legally speaking, and the court, by the way, to answer the question, the comment of the gentleman from Luxor there, the court said the parliament, as of today, from the publication of the court's the resolution, is null and void, and any law made by that assembly is null and void.
So whose job is it to write the new constitution?
The committee, the High Court said the laws issued up till that minute are valid, which is traditionally the case. You do not annul laws created backwards. And the commission, the constituent assembly created, is valid, but it is contested for other reasons in front of another court. There are two different issues. That constituent assembly is still going on until it is annulled or stopped for other reasons. We have to remember that the Brotherhood and the SCAF are in basically what we can call it's a convenience marriage. In a convenience marriage, it's not a Catholic marriage. Everybody has its own wishes and desires and elbowing and who sets foot on top of the other and so on. And what's happening today is part of the game. The legal part is valid. In my opinion, it's 100% valid, and the parliament has no right to convene. It's a challenge, but it's part of the game between the SCAF and the Brotherhood. Morsi there is just the tool.
Tanguy Salan, just give us a bit of historical perspective on this. Yes, it's true that there are deals done sometimes, but it would be unfair to say that the army and the Muslim Brotherhood are hand in glove. The president himself has been in jail. A lot of their militants in the past have been in jail.
Yeah, that's true, but that was before the revolution. So, of course, as many young Egyptians say, there was no such a change in Egypt after the revolution, unfortunately, because a lot of the remnants of the regime are still in place, including in the Constitutional Court. All the judges of the Constitutional Court were appointed by Mubarak. So You can discuss here also the legitimacy of all the Egyptian institutions since the revolution. But well, this is not the point here. There was, yeah, I think it's a wedding, convenience wedding, as Mr. said, because there was a common interest, at least after the revolution, between the Muslim Brotherhood and the SCAF, which was to suppress, basically, the revolutionaries, because they didn't want them to go too far in changing the system, for different reasons.
Or is it just because the Muslim Brotherhood is an organized political party and most of those who were demonstrating in Tahrir Square were not?
That's one of the reasons. That it doesn't mean that there is some kind of alliance, that they are working together on everything, but at least they had a common interest to follow a certain path. Then, of course, we come to the point where everything is at stake, which will be the power of the army in the future and the status of the generals, and which will be the powers of the government, the president, which means for now the Muslim Brotherhood. So it makes things more complicated.
And so now on that point, things are still very much up in the air, it seems. Dalia Hassan was asking a minute ago, why have more political prisoners been freed at the outset? One of Mohamed Morsi's first decisions as president, an immediate 15% raise in salaries and pensions for all public servants. But as Sarah Topol writes in the Daily Beast, he never said where he thought the money would come from. That didn't matter, as the generals soon made clear. On July 1st, they approved the national budget for fiscal year 2012-13 without allowing Morsi even to review it. How would you characterize, Abdul Mawgud Dardari, the relationship right now with the military? Is it, when you look at the fact that you didn't even have a look-in at this year's budget, as a confrontation, or would you say it's a collaboration?
Let me clarify my situation. I wish I were there really in the studio, because I could not follow all the other guests you have conversation. But to characterize the relationship between the newly elected president, the political party. You see, I characterize the situation in Egypt as this. Democratic forces, revolutionary forces on one side, and remnants of the regime in addition to SCAF, or on the other side. This is a challenge. I mean, look at April 6 movement. It's supporting President Morsi, in fact, asking President Morsi to become more revolutionarized. Other coalition, revolutionary coalition. Look at the millions who appeared in Tahrir Square when President. This is not a matter of Muslim Brotherhood supporters. It's really a matter of Egyptian people. And I saw it in my constituency. I saw it in Cairo. I saw it in many different
Okay,
parts.
so I'm gonna, unfortunately, Abdul, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we have to take a short break, but we will pick up on this point when we come back. This is the France 24 debate.
Sure, okay.